about the evolution of Ethereum decentralization. So I don't know how many of you here have read Camilo Russo's book, The Infinite Machine. It's a great book. I feel like it should be a requirement to come to this conference, but it tells the story of how Ethereum came to be. It talks about its chaotic beginnings, takes us through its launch, and how it really came to be one of the most important blockchains that exists today. So this quote is from the book, and it speaks to how Vitalik was thinking about Ethereum in the early days. He envisioned a computer that could simultaneously live in all the nodes of an enormous global network, which would be able to process anything you threw at it without downtime or interference, so developers could build whatever they dreamed of, and nobody would be able to stop them or their applications, like an infinite machine. So this quote really highlights the end goal, what we're all working towards. As everyone says, decentralization is a journey, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Just a quick agenda. We're going to go over the history of Ethereum, take a look at some statistics today, talk about what I believe is the real problem, look at solutions, and then the future. And then a quick introduction of myself. Who am I and why should you care about what I say? I'm the VP of Decentralized Strategy and Engineering at Foundry. I got into this space in 2017. Before Foundry, I owned a Web3 tech consultancy with my business partners and about 25 engineers, and we built Solidity applications on Ethereum. So Ethereum has been my thing for a while. And then Foundry, our mission is to empower a decentralized infrastructure. Half of our business is focused on proof of work. We run the largest Bitcoin mining pool in the world. And on the other half, we focus on proof of stake, and we provide digital asset staking services and advisory services to institutions, with a big focus on ETH staking. Okay, we're gonna go through some Ethereum history. So Ethereum was launched in 2015 as a proof of work chain. However, Vitalik was already thinking about proof of stake. He actually wrote an article that was published in Bitcoin Magazine in August of 2013, titled "What is Proof of Stake and Why It Matters?" And in it, he argues that proof of work was a good option in the beginning, but now years later, after cryptocurrency exists, we can now build protocols that build off the cryptocurrency itself. So proof of stake is an excellent example of that. And in the article, he asks, does proof of stake have a future? Which I thought was very prescient of him. So we won't go too much into the difference of proof of work and proof of stake, but as most of us know, one of the most compelling reasons for proof of work is that it's more energy efficient. So there's no need to use lots of energy for proof of work computations. Instead, validators stake capital as a form of collateral that can be lost if the validator acts dishonestly or lazily. The other compelling reason for proof of stake is that it lowers the barrier to entry. So you no longer need to go out and purchase expensive hardware that you might need to replace in a few years. All you need is a computer, internet connection, and 32 ETH, which I know is still a big investment for a lot of people, but it really does open the door for more participation of a much larger group of people. And the more people that participate, the more nodes we have, leading to greater decentralization, less centralization. And then some milestones, launched in 2015 as a proof of work chain. The Beacon chain, which is the proof of stake chain, was launched in December of 2020. And then finally, the long-awaited merge happened last fall, September of 2022. So big milestones that are leading to greater decentralization for the Ethereum network. So before we look at some validator statistics, I actually was curious about mining statistics because it's not something that I had thought about. So I was searching around. It's actually pretty hard to find data on Ethereum miners, but I did find this report that was compiled by Consensus and CodeFi, the CodeFi data team. So the graph on the left, you'll see the orange line are the miner counts, and the blue line is miner payout addresses, so individual miner payout addresses. And you'll see the large drop in 2016, and it kind of stays steady, and then the number of miner payout addresses is increasing. Then the graph on the right shows mining pool block production, and you'll see that the number The percentage of blocks mined by mining pools increased from 70% in 2016 to 90% in late 2017. And there's another graph that shows the block rewards attributed to mining pools. And that also increased from 71% to 97% in 2017. So it's showing a drastic increase of mining pool influence while the number of pools actually decreased. So I thought that was an interesting kind of statistic that shows some centralization with the Ethereum miners. And then this next graph shows the flow of funds from the largest mining pools from 2017 to 2020. It's called the Sankey diagram. So the blue are the largest mining pools, and you'll see that over years of payouts, those payouts were actually consolidated between eight addresses. So there's some kind of a customer payout centralization there as well. Okay, now we're going to move on to where we are today. Looking at Ethereum validator stats, these numbers are a week old, so they might be a little off. We're at 538,000 validators. The number has been steadily increasing since the Beacon chain was launched, with about 100,000 depositor addresses and 16.8 million ETH deposited, which is about 15% of all of the ETH that exists today. And then if we look at the breakdown of the validators, we'll see that Lido, a liquid staking provider, manages 163 validators, so taking up 30% of the market share. Coinbase coming in second with 64,000 validators, taking up 12%, Kraken and Binance, and a few others. And then another way to look at it is altogether, staking as a service providers account for 72% of all the staked ETH. Again, 43% of the staked ETH is managed by Lido and Coinbase. So I know looking at these percentages and these graphs at face value, it might seem alarming, right? Does this look like the decentralized system that we all envisioned? But if you take a more nuanced look, it really is less of a concern. So I wanted to focus on Lido since it has 30% of the market share. Today, Lido has 29 whitelisted node operators that are voted in through a DAO. They're all professional organizations. So all of those validators are actually split across these 29 node operators. No single entity controls more than 5.14% of Lido's staked ETH, and that's not more than 1.5% of staked ETH today. So to attempt a 51% attack, you really need collusion between all of these node validators as well as two other of the major validators. So the risk is, I think, not as high as it might seem. And if these entities did collude, of course, the remaining honest validators could decide to keep building on the minority chain and ignore the attacker's fork. Moving on to geographical distribution of nodes. So the US controls 55% of the nodes globally, and Germany coming in second at 15% of the nodes globally. So this is really important. If we had all of the ETH nodes in China, for example, that government could shut down the network. So the more distributed nodes are across countries, the less of a risk that there is, because if one government is trying to shut down the network, they would have to work with the other governments, and we all know how governments are not great at working together. So highly unlikely, but definitely a little bit of centralization here. I think we can do better. Now looking at infrastructure, which I think is the highest risk. So looking at Ethereum validator clients, we have Geth and Prism. Geth is taking 76% of the market with execution clients, and Prism 42% of the consensus clients. So a little bit of centralization there. And then the graph, the circle all the way to the right is showing where all of the nodes are deployed. And so this is another thing that I never really thought about until I started working at an infrastructure company. So I was pretty shocked to find out that 70% of ETH nodes are hosted in centralized data centers, 50% in AWS, and 20% in Hetzner, Google, and OVH. So again, I think this is really the highest risk. and kind of antithetical to the whole point of decentralization, because we're taking these nodes that are supposed to be running a decentralized network and putting half of them into a very centralized organization that could pull the plug on their blockchain infrastructure and really disrupt the network. So I think this is, out of all of the risks that we looked at, I think this one really is the most important one to kind of focus on. Okay, so now we're going to look at some solutions and what we can do better. First being more node operators. So again, the pie chart on the left is where we are today, and then the pie chart on the right is, I think, where we can get to. So Foundry, of course, coming into the space with providing ETH staking, we definitely want a piece of the pie. We want to be there to service institutional clients. I know in this ideal world, everyone has an ETH validator at home, but that's just, it's not realistic, right? Like, we definitely need individual node operators and more of them, but we also need companies like Foundry and other large node providers that are able to service institutions. You know, banks one day will want to stake their ETH, and companies like Foundry will be there to be able to support that infrastructure at scale. Getting off the cloud, right? So at Foundry, we are deploying all of our ETH validators and other validators that we work with on bare metal machines that we own and control across different data centers. So yeah, moving anything that we have off of Amazon to bare metal machines. This is something else that other node operators can do as well to make the system more resilient. And then the picture below the servers is the picture of the hardware that I purchased with my business partner. We pooled our ETH and set up a validator a couple years ago. So if you're an individual node operator and you have your ETH validator deployed on Amazon, I highly encourage you to spend like $1,000 on some hardware and spend a fun weekend deploying your validator and running it on your own infrastructure. And then distributed validator technology. So this is the next kind of big thing after the merge. Distributed validator technology, it's a decentralized open source protocol that allows the duties of a validator to be distributed among multiple nodes as opposed to a single machine. So rather than running the one validator, you have a cluster of machines that are doing the work of one validator. And this will improve validator participation, which will lead to greater stake decentralization. And the reason why it's going to improve validator participation is it really alleviates some of the risks that all types of node operators experience. So as an individual node operator, you run the risk of your machine going down and missing rewards. This has happened to my validator. So if you have a cluster that make up that one validator, if one of the machines goes down, you still have the three others. So it really kind of removes the single point of failure there. And then for large node operators, you probably have automated scripts to redeploy a validator if it goes down, but you do run the risk of maybe having two validators signing with the same keys, which could lead to slashing. So if you set up a distributed validator technology, you can prevent that from happening. And then, of course, building redundancy for the larger providers, allowing more operator participation for liquid staking providers as well. And then the future. So in the future, we do see Foundry being a major player in ETH staking and supporting institutions. A couple things that we're excited to kind of announce is our ETH staking solution that we're launching later this month. Also, we're supporting a couple of the liquid staking providers. Since our focus is institutions, this allows retail to get in and use some of the infrastructure that Foundry runs. So we're supporting Stakewise, V3 testnet, and participating in a Lido DVT pilot. And then, of course, the proliferation of L2s and rollups, we hope will lead to more mainstream adoption in the world, and all of the things that we talked about. So we need more diversity in node operators, clients, geographical locations where nodes are deployed, and infrastructure. And of course, we see We hope to see more of you running ETH validators and staking your ETH with decentralized staking providers such as Lido, Rocket Pool, and Stakefish, and any other ones that I didn't mention. So yeah, if we can do all this, then we can get Ethereum to a more decentralized network. I ended a little early, thank you. If you have any questions, our booth is, I think, back this way, so come by and we can chat. Thanks.